In today's content, we will be studying SHX and looking at whether there is a Giga pump that could be on the horizon. There are some telltale signs that the charts are printing right now. So without further ado, let's dive into those and break them down. Nothing that I say is financial advice. Let's dive into the content. So coming over to SHX on the weekly time frame here, I honestly think sometimes it's best to keep charts to a minimum and it just reduces all of the clutter. So at the moment, I've just got three major descending resistance lines on for SHX. Now, in the past, when these descending resistance lines have broken, SHX has put in some monster moves. So back here in November 2023, SHX placed a 23x up to this local high. Once it broke this major descending resistance, fast forward to this major descending resistance from February 2024 all the way till November 2024, you can see that once SHX broke this resistance, it then rallied up and placed in a 3.5x, and now you can see we've got this third major descending resistance line that SHX needs to break in order to see the continued push side to higher targets. So again, just keeping it simple, short, sweet, support versus resistance. Once these major descending resistances have been cleared in the past, SHX has gone for a massive rally. So with this week, we are approaching this major resistance line after failing to break through it on the 9th of June. In fact, from this local high until the 9th of June, this is what managed to create this descending resistance. So you can see on January 2025, we topped out at around 2 cents and since then put in this ABC correction. And right now you can see that we've also had some sort of ABC back up into this resistance. Now for the last few weeks, SHX has had a pullback and you can see that on the week of 7th of July, we're actually starting to reattempt to break this resistance level. So if I actually make this a little bit smaller for us right now, and we have a little bit of a focus on this cluster of price action right here. If you're familiar with my last update on SHX, which was only last week, I believe, we were studying the Gorian channel. Now, this Gorian channel in the past has provided optimal opportunities on the middle band of the Gorian channel. So the regression band, the middle regression band of the Gorian, whenever we've come down towards this sort of territory in the past is offered optimal opportunity. And you can see that on the 7th of April, we had a retest to it and saw relief. And then fast forward to the 2nd of June, we had a retest to it and we've seen relief, which has then brought us back up to this major descending resistance. So right now, SHX is caught. It's trying to break through this upper band of resistance, which you can see it's hitting its head on right this second. And that currently sits at 0.0116. So at the moment, this is a strong level of resistance tying up with the major descending resistance line. So if SHX does get the break of this resistance now and you start seeing closes above it this week, this will be a good sign. And in the next video, I would update that if that does come into fruition. And then we will potentially, let's look at potential targets of where this move could take us if SHX does break this major resistance now, or in fact, for when it decides to do so. Okay, so again, if history is to repeat like the previous major descending resistance lines, if SHX does break out and starts to take out these local highs especially, we could be looking for a move. Let's have a look from that low. We could be looking for a move up towards around 3 cents to 4.5 cents roughly. Again, that's just an estimate based off of what I'm looking at here. So if I just drag this on a little bit, got to make sure that's on the low to be fair. Let me just get these on quickly. The 0 and the 1s. They get in the way sometimes, so I just remove them. But if I get this knob on and knob onto this high, yeah, I think in the near short term, you could be looking to push towards 4 to 4.5 cents. And if it does start to get explosive, I think SHX really likes to hit its 2 fib. So I think you're looking at a near 7 cent. And don't get me wrong, this isn't a bull run target. A lot of people say, well, is that it? Is that it? No, this isn't a bull run target. This is just the breakout target based on Fibonacci's from this local low, retracing back to this high, and the breakout targets are above here from the 1272 all the way up to the 2 fib. So I think that if we're looking for that sort of move and we get the breakout this week, once the 1 fib is cleared, the minimum you're looking at is 143% to the 1272 near 3 cents. The 1618 is around a near sort of 3x up to to 4.5 cents. And then the 2 fib is a rough sort of 5x near enough, up to 6 to 7 cents. Now, I do think SHX can push much higher this cycle, but we do need to monitor that from this sort of cluster of price action, ever since the high in January 2025, retracing back to this low in April, this is the targeted play. You've got the 1272 to the 2 fib, and these would be the extension targets I would like to see SHX meet before initially pulling back for a higher level of support. So that's the breakout target for when we do get that break of this descending resistance. And you can see that it does start to get very impulsive once descending resistance lines are broken. So it's all about breaking this major resistance right now. And if we do get that break, those are the targets. However, if SHX does fail to break it on this instance right this second, then we could be coming back for a higher level of support. And again, I would look simply for the middle band of the Gaussian channel. In the past, on major corrections, this has been a key level of support to create some sort of double bottoms or ascending support, which I will show us in a second. And again, we have something similar here. We've also been coming back down to the middle band of the Gaussian channel for key levels of support before trying to go for another break. So if SHX does fail to break right this instance, I think we could see this as some sort of A, B, C back down to the middle band of the Gaussian channel, which sits at around 0.008. And I think I said this in the last video as well, that area is sort of a key potential target for a level of support if it does come into fruition. Now, again, remember, we are on the weekly time frame. We could zoom in and look at the nooks and crannies here. But I think just keeping a bit more of a zoomed out perspective is really helpful in times of uncertainty. So what I wanted to point out here as well, so just keep that in mind. If we do see any further pullback over the next couple of weeks, and this isn't the time to break out, 0.008 is a major level of support. Now, if I remove the drawings and remove the indicators here, and we go back to this zoomed out perspective, in fact, I'll get the descending trend lines back on for us because they're going to be quite important. So you'll notice that this is the descending level of resistance that we needed to break in the past. Another descending level of resistance that needed to be broken in the past. And now we have the current descending resistance that needs to be broken. Now, what you'll realize is that on each of these descending resistances, when the bottom was building, we had these higher lows. Okay, so if I change that quickly to a yellow, just so we're easy to identify, this was the major resistance. And then once it did place it low, it started building these higher low formations. Okay, so what we have on this previous sort of build up here was very similar to what we had in this previous build up here. You can see we came to a low, ran up into resistance, built a higher low. At this point, we ran up into resistance, came back for a higher low, attacked it again, came back for another higher low, and then broke out. So what I'm trying to say is when SHX does put in a bottom after correcting in these phases, it does create an ascending level of support before it gets that squeeze to break out. Okay, so on all previous occasions, SHX has created an ascending level of support. Now, we also have one here from this major correction. You can see that we've been holding and bouncing off of this trend line beautifully for some time. Again, so if SHX does start to roll over here, this is also an ascending level of support that could hold before getting that initial break. So again, history doesn't have to repeat, but it sure does rhyme. You can see that it does like to build an ascending level of support before breaking out. Okay, an ascending level of support before breaking out. And right now we've got the same sort of thing. You've got this ascending level of support looking for the break. So at the moment, that is another level of support that you could look for in simple support and resistance, just retracing back to this support line and then initially going for the break. Now, we did in the prior video as well look at another ascending support level, actually no, a flipped SR zone. And I was saying that if SHX can come back and hold this previous high of May, because what you'll notice is we had this sort of double bottom here. We had this run up into resistance, a pullback for a higher low, and then we've gone for the break. And right now we've back tested this previous level of resistance and turned it to support and are looking for the breakout. So the only thing that's really stopping us here is this major descending resistance line, because you've come up, you've come back to a higher low, broke out, and now you've turned this previous resistance into support. So it has to get the break here and break this descending resistance to confirm the breakout and to confirm that we're not going to retrace any deeper than this low. And again, just remember, if we do start to pull back any lower, just simply look for the ascending support. Okay, so if it does start to say roll over next week, just look for ascending support, and things could really get tight heading into sort of mid-August, you know, if this isn't the breakout now where it does start to push to those higher targets that we spoke about earlier. So that's kind of it for me, I think, on SHX. Today is just a simple video, just sort of going back through past data. You know, these major descending resistance lines, when they are broken, they do lead to massive euphoric moves, and I did provide the targets if we do get the breakout this week. Again, just remember, if it doesn't come into fruition right now, we do have those pullback support targets. And let's be honest, okay, guys, if SHX fails to break out here and there is more downside for the market, we have to keep our eyes on this as well. You know, as good as it may seem right this second, if there is a downturn before, let's say, coming into sort of September, because I'm looking at roughly around September for altcoins to really put in their maximum pain bottoms and start picking up. You know, I could be completely wrong, but that's just what I'm seeing on the charts. So just keep in mind that if we do come back and actually lose this low from April, then I would be looking at around a 0.004 SHX. Now, again, I don't see this at the moment, but if we are to say potentially having a relief rally and we don't break this resistance right now and we come back and lose this low, then I think we could be in a larger macro ABC back down to a key level of support before then attempting the break of this descending resistance. Okay, so it's all about breaking this major descending resistance right now, holding the ascending support that's building here, and that would negate this idea. But again, we have to cover every potential, and that would be the retracement I'd look for if this is something called a dead cat bounce, because you can get corrections that run up to, say, 50-60% of the retracement back to that high, and then you could just roll over. Okay, it's a possibility. So if SHX, we'll look at it now, if SHX is running into its key resistance at a 0.618 or 0.786 fib, then this is something that we potentially need to monitor. I need to adjust my settings here, but we'll get the 1.618 and the 1.22 off. Yeah, so you can see that from this low, retracing back to this high, the 0.618 at 0.013, around this sort of area, is the potential of placing a dead cat bounce. And a dead cat bounce is literally when you correct in a wave and then you have another impulsive wave to retrace back to this high, but you tend to get rejected at around the golden ratio and then pull back for a deeper wave. So this is the major resistance as well as the descending resistance for SHX to break. Okay, just get this onto your charts. Get this trend line on, guys. Okay, I'll put it to yellow so it makes it a bit easier. Get this trend line on, monitor the break of this trend line. If it breaks through the trend line, ultimately it has to get through the 0.618 in order to push up to this 1 fib. Okay, so this is a very important fib from the local low of April going back to the highs of sort of January. This is the major resistance loan on the Fibonacci's that SHX needs to break to kickstart the Giga pump. I hope you've enjoyed the content, guys. From Chart Nerd TA, take care. Peace out.